suppose. Hope everybody's having a happy Wednesday. I'm Bear with BearIndependent.com, President and CEO of Refuge Medical, Refuge Training, Grindstone Ministries, and Caleb House. And this morning we're going to do the brief. If you're new here, you know what to do. Do all the things. Ring the little bell, hit the subscribe button. Hope that YouTube will supply you with notifications when we go live or drop a new video. Well, they won't, but at least do the things. If you're not new here, you know what to do. Share the show with somebody you love. Good morning, Dragon Keeper, Patty Sanchez, Constitutional Homestead, Rags to Riches Resale, Ehud Sword, everybody else in the chat. Loved your video last night. Thank you, Vinny War Dog. I appreciate that. If you haven't watched that video titled No Peasant Shit, I would strongly recommend you go watch it. And we'll touch on something briefly before we start the brief. Somebody made the comment on that video to the effect of, you call yourself a man of God, yet you say words like shit. For sure. Yeshua, Messiah, Jesus, told the Pharisees that their works were filthy menstrual rags, and he called them swine and a den of adders. So what the world considers cursing and what the Bible considers cursing are two very different things. The Bible basically says you can call down curses on people. Yeah, you can ask Elohim, the creator of the universe, to curse you, or to curse somebody else. Not to curse you, I wouldn't do that. And if you behave in a certain way, your actions shall bring upon you curses. No bueno. That's different than you made a noise with your mouth that society doesn't like. Okay? So we're all clear. I have never called myself a man of Elohim. I am a follower of Messiah. I read the book and I do what it says. So, that being said, the sifting continues. There are those who are supposed to be here and those who aren't. That's fine. If you're supposed to be here, Mazel Tov, Shalom, welcome, love you. Thanks for being a part of the Bear Nation. If you're not supposed to be here, unsubscribe. Okay. Bear Independent Brief, 28 December 22. The EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, has slapped new restrictions on the trucking industry in a bid to slash air pollution and emissions. We'll talk about some of my run-ins with the EPA perhaps in a moment. Good morning, Prepping Survival. Good morning, Jen and Steve. The recent EPA tailpipe rule is part of a three-step plan that requires that vehicle makers cut the emissions of their trucks' nitrogen dioxide for models 2027 and onward, with the aim of being able to reduce emissions of that substance, nitrogen dioxide, by around 50% by 2045. This is expected to further increase operating costs within the U.S. supply chain, but there are many critics that say it's nowhere near enough. California's strict 90% cut requirement is superior. It would be better just to switch to zero emissions vehicles. It's only a short-term solution, and so on. These are the arguments that are being made. Still, EPA officials have stated that the limitations would equate to the prevention of 6,700 hospitalizations, 2,900 premature deaths, and 1,800 cases of childhood asthma by 2045. On top of that, the economic costs should be outpaced by the benefits to the tune of $29 billion annually. Whole lot of thoughts here. First of all, my involvement, I should say unwilling involvement with the EPA over the course of my life has been less than stellar. I've told the story before, but I'll tell it again. In Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater area, there's a bunch of water. And on some of that water is the Weeden Island Game Preserve. And on that Weeden Island Game Preserve is a coal-fired power plant. And we, the company I was working for, put in some very large power cables from that power plant all over that area of Florida. At the time, it was the longest directional bore in North America. 1,270 feet. That's right. 1,270 feet. Big deal. 42-inch casing, 48-inch bore. It was nuts. Anyway, we were out there one day working in the right-of-way, and a little white pickup truck shows up. It's got an EPA nerd in it with a clipboard, and he gets out and he starts looking under the trucks, taking notes. And I said, "Hey, can I help you?" They said, "Yeah, I'm Jeffrey Schmiedley with the EPA." Okay, cool. What can I do for you? Well, there's a bunch of dead crabs underneath of your truck. Yeah, there's dead fiddler crabs everywhere. The right-of-way was paved with dead fiddler crabs by the millions. These are these little crabs that are about the size of a silver dollar. They got one little claw and one big claw, and they walk sideways like this. Millions of them. So dude starts counting the crabs underneath the trucks as if we are responsible for all these dead crabs. According to Mr. Joseph Schmiedley with the EPA, $10,000 fine per crab. So I had a kid named Sammy working for me. I said, "Sammy, get a shovel." And everything down there, "What's up, SOE? I appreciate you. They're worried about deaths from emissions, but not the vax." We're gonna talk about that in a moment. By the way, brother, I was wearing your hoodie earlier this morning. It's a phenomenal hoodie. Really good. I need to know where you got that garment from, because I would potentially like to use it. Same garment for some of the stuff that we're doing. So, shout out to SOE. Good morning, Iridium Group. So, Sammy brings me a shovel, and it's Florida, so everything's sand. And we just start furiously shoveling sand underneath the trucks, covering up the dead crabs. To which I said to Mr. Joseph Schmiedley from the EPA, "I don't see any dead crabs, and I think you need to go." And so he hopped in his truck, and he left, and we avoided a $10,000 per crab fine. Dude, let the people work. Government is not worried about safety, period. Good morning, AM Ryan. I would agree with that. Now, some other thoughts here from the EPA. Prevent 6,700 hospitalizations, 2,900 premature deaths, and 1,800 cases of childhood asthma. Isn't this the same administration that willy-nilly is like, "Oh, you got a baby in your womb? You can totally kill that. It's just a clump of cells. We don't care. Oh, the baby's out of your womb, but it hasn't been out for very long. No problem. We can have a post-birth abortion." Negative. Bad idea. Completely unrighteous. So, of course, the rhetoric doesn't line up, right? And it never does. But I just find it interesting that they are concerned about hospitalizations, premature deaths, and 18,000 cases of childhood asthma. That's their talking point. Yet we kill the unborn by the millions. I don't agree with the vast majority of what Kanye West has to say, but I did hear him say in an interview that the most dangerous place for an African American to be is in their mother's womb. Oof. That hit like a ton of bricks. Yeah. We can kill 1 million babies a year. But we gotta now nerf all of our diesel trucks because of nitrogen dioxide. Because it might, there could be some nationwide additional 1,800 cases of childhood asthma by 2045. I don't know if anybody knows, it's almost 2023. So let's amortize that out. That's about 2,000 additional cases per year, and we're going to nerf $1 trillion industry. No, doesn't make sense to me. While we're briefly on the subject, the concept of murder in the womb, because that's what I believe it is, because that's what the Father says it is, and I want to be absolutely clear on this. I love people who have had abortions, and they have seen the error in their ways, and have repented, and have changed their stripes. And I can't imagine the emotional, spiritual roller coaster that presents. And so I'm not knocking those people. I'm knocking an industry that's been designed from jump to murder the unborn. Look at the demography of the United States of America. We don't produce enough people to replace the people who are dying. And people are living way longer. So the demographic pyramid that used to be composed mostly of younger productive people at the bottom and then with people who were aging and no longer productive at the top has turned more into, in the words of Peter Zeihan, rather than a pyramid, a chimney. It's much more vertical, right? People are living way longer because of advances in medicine, and people are taking way longer to become productive, right? It's not the 18-year-old who's out there earning money anymore. The 18-year-old is living in mom's basement in a lot of cases, or the 30-year-old, or the 35-year-old, okay? So our demography is all jacked, unsustainably so if you look at a lot of the data. Do you know how demographers fix that data when your replacement rate for human beings is too low? Immigration. So it's interesting to me that on the one hand, and I know we're talking about diesel trucks today, but we're in a rabbit hole and we're going to stay here just for one more minute. It's interesting to me that the same people who on the one hand are all for the wholesale slaughter of the unborn and who are for extending adolescence to the point that it destroys youth productivity are also for lawless immigration. Wait a minute. Right? It's the Hegelian dialectic. Create the problem, create the solution to the problem, smash the two together, synthesis. It's really annoying to me, honestly. And I'm not against immigration either. Lawful immigration, for sure. But unlawful immigration that's being facilitated by one of the two shitty political parties in the country. And let's be honest, the other shitty political party is allowing it to happen. Good morning, East Sandring. Unlawful immigration, right, from this party that's facilitating it, essentially makes a huge contingent of voters for that one party. How curious. How interesting. It also, though, last thought on this, speaks to the fact that even though the United States of America, the Estados Unidos, might be falling apart, we're not what we were, right? And I think at some level, we all have a responsibility, a duty, after our own house is squared away, to help the United States get back to what it was. And that's a bottom-up approach, not a top-down approach, as we've discussed previously. Thank you, Jason Hart. Even though we're the best-looking horse in the glue factory, millions of people are still flocking here because there's more opportunity, more upward mobility here than anywhere else in the world. Indicator, right? It might not be the indicator that we want it to be, but it's an indicator. And we should be open to all information, whether it fits our preconceived notions, the paradigms that we've built or not. Doesn't mean you have to agree with it. Take the information in, process it, pick and choose what you want. As Pastor Joe says, chew the meat, spit out the bones, right? So back to the brief. When it comes to the air quality impact on human health, diesel-burning trucks and buses are some of the worst offenders. Heavy diesel exhaust tends to disproportionately impact the health of people in less affluent neighborhoods that are chronically exposed to the air pollution emitted by these vehicles. As a point of interest, people in the Midwest and South may be the most prevalent beneficiaries of these coming policy changes due to large concentrations of people living by congested highways. Also, I believe we're on Tier 4 diesel engines now that require DEF, diesel exhaust fluid, to operate, which has been interestingly scarce in the last few years because of some global flu thing that happened, and then a war, proxy war over there between NATO and Russia. And now all of a sudden, urea, the piss, is not available to make the diesel exhaust fluid, which begs the question, since DEF is like 62.5% water and 37.5% urea, can you just pee in your DEF tank? Does it work? I don't know. But we've got these Tier 4 diesel engines now to meet these exhaust requirements, these emissions requirements. And as Isandring brought up earlier, this was originally put in place somewhere around 2010, and the industry is just figuring out now how to make engines that don't suck. Can't wait till we continue to neuter the trucking industry, of which somewhere around 80 to 90% of everything you touch in your daily life was on a truck at one point. This Nalgene bottle came on a truck. These gloves came on a truck. If you buy a Refuge Medical ARK kit, it'll come on a truck, right? All the stuff that it took to make that ARK came on a truck. All the materials to build this team room came on a truck. So who's going to pay for that? You, me, us. Thanks, government. Love you. You're the best. Still, there are some negatives that will eventually come to fruition for everyone. The Truck and Engine Manufacturers Association has warned that the government shouldn't set the bar too high, as it will impact the cost of the truck. Yes, the manufacturers will have fewer people buying their products due to the expense, but more importantly for the average Joe, truckers will drive their older vehicles for longer. Interesting. Oh, Shannon B., I love truckers. I'm all about truckers. 6% of Americans drive a commercial truck for a living. That's a large portion of Americans. So if we're going to keep older trucks on the road longer with Tier 3 and Tier 4 engines, because Tier 5s are going to have to be coming out here in the near future, according to the EPA. Good morning, Ian McPhee. Shalom, brother. If we're going to do that, we're going to have older trucks on the road longer. Where do all the repair parts come from for that? Silly question. Do those repair parts come on trucks? I'm willing to bet they come on trucks, right? I don't know. Second, third order effects. Anybody thought about that? Ultimately, this will decrease efficiency and increase costs as operators have to choose between frequent repairs and higher purchase prices. Some may choose to leave the industry altogether. I've been doing a lot of research on the trucking industry the last couple of weeks. I've talked about it previously on the brief, but an interesting statistic is that the industry forecasts that within the next 10 years, there will be a 54% turnover of drivers in the next 10 years. And the insurers that insure the trucking industry are very concerned about this because the loss of institutional knowledge, the know-how, the driver experience that's going to come with that turnover. It's a thing. Wonder who will benefit monetarily from the push from the EPA. That's a great question. Que bono. Who wins? Dudley, good morning, brother. Driver retention is horrible. Yup. The expense of keeping a fleet in business will rise, and thus the cost of using the supply chain will rise too. Texas Trucking Association President John Esparza said, quote, the costs associated with this are also a concern because these are costs that not only the industry will bear, prices will go up for everybody, end quote. And that's fine because the dollar is so strong right now. We're doing great economically. All the pieces and parts from the globalized supply chain are working just fine. There's no war. There's no debt bubbles. There's a high amount of worker productivity. Thank you very much, Alex. Hello from not Pennsylvania. So everything's fine. The American people can absolutely absorb this additional cost. It's no big deal. It's no big deal. It's no big deal. Plus, diesel costs are very low. The morale of the drivers is very high. The operability of the equipment is super good. The roads are in great condition. Taxes are low. Dollar is strong. What's the problem? Oh, wait, all that's make-believe. It's opposite day. I forgot to tell y'all, it's opposite day. We need to be manufacturing parts here, says A. Roberts. I agree 110%. What are you drinking, Brother Bear? Michael the Screech Owl. This is 1 scoop of First Form Ignition pre-workout and 1 scoop of Jocko in a liter of water. So, Yeah. I was in the big city last night and this morning, and we stopped at the Mermaid Coffee place because my wife likes mermaid coffee. And so I got a dark roast with some heavy cream, and the lid was not on it. And so my balls got heavily caffeinated this morning, and I got really pissed. And then we managed to finagle the lid back onto the cup, and we went to take off again, and the lid came off again. And then my chest and my SOE tactical hoodie got heavily caffeinated. And so we then went back into the Mermaid Coffee place, where Ferocious Bear cut everybody in line and demanded another friggin' cup of coffee. Suffice it to say, it's been an interesting morning. And so, a little First Foreman Jocko. I thought about, I'm not gonna lie, for a brief moment in time I was like, didn't some lady get $53 million from McDonald's for this exact situation? Right? Always carry a Contigo. That's right, Dudley. So, I didn't have a Contigo. Shame on me. So now some Nalgene with some pre-workout in it. Because we are in the process of land clearing here. And I don't know if anybody's ever land cleared, which is basically logging and dirt work. It's PT. It's PT. I count it. That's the brief for today. There's an article I wanted to read from kus-usa.com. Vaguely related. For an introduction to DEF, its uses and why it's required, and the DEF level sender functions such as temperature level and concentration, look no further. Mostly this is the part that I'm interested in right here. What exactly is diesel exhaust fluid? For those of us who aren't truck drivers. Diesel exhaust fluid, better known as DEF, is a chemical compound known for neutralizing nitrous oxide. Or NOx emissions. Now, this is not nitrogen dioxide, this is nitrous oxide. That would otherwise be harmful to the environment and people. Nitrogen oxides contribute to the formation of smog and acid rain. They affect the tropospheric ozone. DEF is a crucial additive to understand when operating large vehicles and heavy equipment. By the way, so I operate a lot more heavy equipment than I do trucks. And the newer heavy equipment that has DEF tanks in it, you can tell a difference between just a tier 2 or tier 3 mechanical engine. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. You can absolutely feel a difference in the performance, and it's not a good difference. DEF is a mixture composed of 67.5% deionized water and 32.5% urea. Piss. DEF is sprayed and then spread into the exhaust gas via a mixer before entering the SCR catalyst. That thing sounds cheap and reliable. As DEF enters the system, it evaporates into ammonia and water. The ammonia sticks on the SCR catalyst and binds with the nitrous oxide and NO2 as they pass over the catalyst. Once bound, the nitrous oxide will combine with the NH3 to create a chemical reaction resulting in nitrogen 2N2 and water 3,2H2O. 3,2H2O. Interesting. The water and nitrogen are then released into the atmosphere through the exhaust system. Beginning in 2010, the Environmental Protection Agency required lower NOx emissions. Let's define environment, by the way. What do you mean, environment? I would argue that a critical component of the environment are human beings. Just throwing that out there. Like, be fruitful and multiply? Yup. A nation of kings and priests? Yup. Rule and subdue? Yup. Work the garden and guard it? Yup. That's all people stuff. So it's arguable that people are a critical component of the environment. And as we discussed previously, yes, 18,000 cases of childhood asthma could be prevented over the next 22 years by introducing these Tier 5 engines. What about the people that gotta earn a living? Just throwing that out there. Also, speaking of people, who here has been here for a super duper long time? Because if you've been here for a super duper long time, you remember who this is? Do you remember who this is? Anybody? Does anybody remember who this is? I'm looking in the comments. What's his name? Steven! That's right, it's Steven. Hey guys, it's Steven. So good to see you today. I was cleaning out an old desk drawer and I found Steven. So I put him in the team room. Critical component. Very good for morale. Get up there, Steven. Oh, all right, he fell off the shelf. He's got a death wish today. All right, let's see. Beginning in 2010, the Environmental Protection Agency required lower NOx emissions. In response, vehicle manufacturers began using DEF systems for all medium and heavy-duty on-road vehicles. In the years to follow, the EPA would expand those measures to include off-road vehicles, generators, and a variety of engines to use DEF. These regulations would result in the lowest recorded levels of nitrogen oxide in history during an integral period where nitrous oxide levels were reaching all-time highs. So, that's what DEF is. That's the reasoning as to why they have it. Texting my wife. About to put a bow on this brief. So, that's the brief for today. A couple of things we need to talk about. Again, if you're new here, subscribe if you like these kinds of shenanigans. If you don't like these kind of shenanigans, unsubscribe because I'm not going to change. And this is just the way that things are around here. If you're on Patreon, thank you very much. I appreciate you deeply. Y'all are the economic engine of the Bear Nation, and I love you with all of my big, burly, sometimes just a little wild soul. This morning on Patreon, we talked about journaling for the homestead, keeping records, and how do you clean after the balloon goes up? Like, you know, SHTF cleaning. Most people don't think about that because, you know, they're trying to increase comfort with prepping rather than mitigating risk, and cholera is real and it'll kill your ass. We've talked previously about how 2/3, statistically, historically, 2/3 of wartime casualties are our fault. 1/3 is logistics, didn't have the food, the water, the diesel, the ammo that you needed to have when you should have it. And the other is infection and disease. It's only 1/3 the bad guys. It's only 1/3 the bad guys. It's 2/3 our fault. And so a big part of that is like, how do you keep stuff clean when the balloon goes up? Because it would be a real shame to like survive a nuclear holocaust and then die because you didn't disinfect a surface that you should have, or you didn't have a way to wash your hands, right? And it's like little things like that that most people don't think about. So we talked about that on Patreon this morning. There's a link in the description of every video and live stream. Get over there, join the Patreon fam, dude. It's 15 cents a day, $5 a month, 5 single doll hairs, and it's the best money you can spend on the internet. I promise you that. And if you don't like it, I will give you $0 back. You can just quit after a month. It's fine. Consider it a $5 investment into your ability to survive the end of the world as we know it. Good morning, TNT Free Speech. I appreciate you. RefugeMedical.com. I am founder and CEO of RefugeMedical.com. Today featured is the ARK, the Advanced Ripaway Kit. Speaking of vehicles and trucks, this kit is not only MOLLE compatible, it also comes with straps. You can mount this to the back of your headrest. I have one of these mounted to the back of the headrest of my daughter's car. Okay, this was developed, we developed it, but it was originally designed by Twitch, our lead instructor at Refuge Training. And this is made in America, guaranteed forever. Okay, so we make this, and it's got this little buckle right here. You undo the buckle, and then this back panel is what's mollied to your chest rig or your plate carrier or your war belt or your headrest or in your semi-truck or whatever. And you just rip this off. If you don't want to rip it off, you can let it dangle on your kit, and then you can work off of your kit. But what I really like about it is you can take it off and lay it on the ground next to the casualty that you're working on. Okay, so super cool product here. And it's got your Sharpie It's got your shears. It's got 2 sets of chest seals. It's got quick clot combat gauze or quick clot rolled gauze for wound packing. It's got compressed gauze for wound packing. You've got a soft T tourniquet on the outside here, a real tourniquet, Committee on TCCC recommended windlass tourniquet, not some junk rat's tourniquet or other garbage, not made in China, a real tourniquet. You've got wound packing gauze. You've got an S-mark bandage for compression in here. You've got a flat compression bandage. Everything you need to treat 1 to 2 critical casualties, all inside of this kit. Folds up, super nice, compact, like so. Made in America, guaranteed forever. If you break this thing, I will replace it at no cost to you. No questions asked. If you buy this thing today and 20 years from now it breaks, I will replace it or repair it at no cost to you. If you use the components in this kit to save somebody's life, I will replace your components at no cost to you, okay? There are not better first aid kits on the planet. That's why Refuge Medical exists. That's why we're still in business. That's why we currently, after just 3.5 years in business, have 2% of the global market share with first aid kits, and we're going to triple that in 2023. So yeah, Refuge Medical and Training.com. If you're on Patreon, you got your promo code. Use your promo code. Free shipping the entirety of December, which is almost over. Speaking of December being almost over, if you have an HSA or FSA, they typically expire the 1st of January. If you don't use it, you lose it. So if you got some money burning a hole in your pocket, refugemedical.com. Ote, good conversation. Refuge Training, there's a bajillion classes up at refugetraining.com. If you don't understand how to use your kit, if you do not know the fine art of how to not die, I would highly recommend that you go to refugetraining.com. Michael Scott said, would you recommend the ARK or the SOB for my carrier? Does one have more capabilities than the other? Great question, Michael Scott. Stand by. Look, an SOB kit. Look, an ARK kit. So they're about the same footprint, which is very important. They're about the same footprint, okay? They're about the same thickness. The SOB weighs a little less than the ARK does. The SOB is going to come in at 1 pound. The ARK's going to come in at about 1.5 pounds, okay? The SOB, this one here, small of the back kit. You got your tourniquet on the outside. Pop this open. Internal pouch. Pull this out, same concept. Now I have my stuff out where I can use it. I hate first aid kits that are attached to my body, because if I get blown up and I'm laying on top of it, or if I'm in a car wreck and I can't get to it, it doesn't help me at all, right? You need to be able to get it out where you can use it. So the SOB, and again, look right there, made in USA, United States of America, proudly. Same lifetime guarantee on this, everything else that we make. This has a little pouch inside of here, okay? So you got your gloves, you got your combat gauze, compression bandage, Sharpie, chest seals, etc. inside of the SOB. The SOB is more of a blowout kit, specifically designed initially for the competitive shooting space to be worn on a war belt. Our brother Patriot Plumber reached out to us and he said, hey, I'm doing more and more competition shooting, and I've noticed all the IFAKs suck and I can't find a good one for my war belt. You guys make cool kits. Can you make a cool kit for me? We're like, absolutely. And thus the small of the back kit was born. So this is a good plate carrier chest rig war belt kit. Really good for the tactical and shooting sports community, okay? What it doesn't have is it doesn't have the rip away that the ARK has, okay? The ARK you can rip away. Again, you can mount it on the headrest, you can mount it on your web gear, you can whatever. And like I said, you pop the buckle, right? And then this placard on the back stays attached to wherever you have it hanging. And then you can take this off where you need it, or you pop it open and let it dangle on your kit. But it comes apart like so, all right? So the ARK has that increased functionality that the SOB doesn't. The ARK is also designed to work 1 to 2 casualties, whereas the SOB is an IFAK, and the I in IFAK is an individual first aid kit. So the SOB is for you. The ARK is for you and a buddy, you and somebody else, okay? So there are some differences there, but they're both MOLLE compatible. They're both made in America, guaranteed forever. They both have what you need to work the March algorithm and nothing that you don't. They both have real tourniquets on them. They both have real North American Rescue, TACMed, and Medline equipment inside of them. They're excellent. Okay, but that's the prevailing differences between the two. Good question. Refuge training. Come to class. Learn how to not die. Cool. You bought a kit. You don't know how to use it? All right. There's two ways you can address that. The first is here on Bear Independent. We have an entire playlist called Trauma Medicine, where I literally take a BearFAK and I open it up and I talk you through everything that's in there, how to use it. Okay, now it's on you because this is information, not instruction. It's on you to do what I tell you how to do in those videos. How to apply a tourniquet, how to pack a wound, how to apply chest seals, what a nasopharyngeal airway is, what tension pneumothorax is, why circulation matters, why hypothermia is a thing, what is the lethal triad, right? Yeah, etc., right? Lethal triad, all of which is related to blood loss, which is why the March algorithm is prioritized in the order of care. March, the first is M, which is massive bleeding. So you can watch those videos. There's a trauma medicine playlist here. It's free on YouTube at Bear Independent. Better yet, you could come to class. Invest. You're not spending money. You're investing. You're investing your money and your time to come and learn how to not die. Bear, what are those two books? What two books do you speak of? I have a lot of books in here. Somebody asked about sutures. We have an SK6 surgical kit in the store, refugemedical.com. Go check that out. And it's important to understand what an IFAK is for, individual first aid kit, or trauma medicine kit, and what it's not for. What it's for is to deal with the casualty immediately in a tactical situation. Now, TCCC, Tactical Combat Casualty Care, we know from the military, right? But it was adapted to civilians as Tactical Emergency Casualty Care. And it's broken down into 3 phases, okay? Care under fire, tactical field care, and then CASEVAC or medevac. In care under fire, meaning the violence is still happening, somebody's still shooting at us, the car wreck is still ongoing, that more cars are still slamming into these cars, whatever. The violence is still happening, aka it's a hot zone. The only thing that we do is self-apply tourniquets if we can. Okay, so it's self-aid, not buddy aid. Then, so that's care under fire. Then you have tactical field care. Now the kits start coming open. All right, now we apply chest seals. Now we check for breathing, chin thrust, jaw lift, nasopharyngeal airway. Now we look for signs of tracheal deviation for tension pneumothorax. Now we blah, 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 blah. Now we're using our kit, okay? And that's a warm zone. What that means, warm zone, is the immediate violence has stopped, but it could start again. Somebody could start shooting at us again. More cars could smash into these cars. Like, more bad stuff could continue to happen. And then you have CASEVAC or medevac. And again, I discuss all this. It's an 8-part series in that playlist. Go watch it. I can't find the ARK on your website. Just click on first aid kits. It's there. And additionally, there's a link in the description. So you can click on that link and go there. CASEVAC and medevac. That means getting off the X, where the bad stuff happened, to a higher level of care. CASEVAC is a way to convey the casualties to a higher level of care that doesn't have dedicated medical personnel along for the ride. Medevac does have dedicated medical personnel along for the ride. Okay? So, all of this is taught at Refuge Training, by the way. So come to class. Go check out Refuge Training. Come to class. Find the class that's nearest to you. Book that class. Okay? Lastly, grindstoneministries.com. It's the end of the year. If you're into end of year giving, please prayerfully consider us. We have Caleb House long sleeves, hoodies, and t-shirts for sale that will help us build Caleb House, which is our restoration facility. Found it, never mind. Appreciate you. Thank you very much. And our brother Saw has his Facts Not Feelings shirt that's available for sale, proceeds of which go to support the building of Caleb House as well. Link in the description, and bless y'all. Thank you. And with that, that's the brief for today. Hey, we're being neutered on YouTube again. We're being throttled, so it really does help if you Comment down below if you give this a thumbs up, and if you share this show with people that you love. That helps get this out there, and it helps get around the roadblocks that YouTube has put on this show. So, can a manual BVM be used legally with oxygen? Yes. By who? By who? Come to Refuge training, take the classes. Next step after you've taken Responder 1, Responder 2, Responder 3, and Responder 4, when we have that out, is that you should go take an EMR class, Emergency Medical Responder. That's a 40-hour class. After that, you can take EMT. Then after that, you can take AEMT. And then after that, if you want to be a paramedic, go for it. So yes, a manual BVM can be used with oxygen if you're certified to use a manual BVM with oxygen. And I believe that's at the EMR level, Emergency Medical Responder level. It also begs the question, where did you get a BVM with an oxygen hookup? And do you have oxygen? Now, if you have those things, generally speaking, you should have the know-how how to use them. Just like having a firearm, possessing a firearm does not equate to proficiency with the firearm. Same thing. And technically, according to the government, oxygen is a drug. So, even though you need it to exist, oxygen is a drug. Okay? CPR healthcare level, even if not EMR, at least in my state. Yeah, so, and CPR falls under the Good Samaritan Act, as does Stop the Bleed, which is what we teach, plus a whole shit ton more in Responder 1. Good morning, Monica. So the Good Samaritan Act means that if you intervene medically to save somebody's life, you are not held legally liable for that person, for that intervention. Now, under the Good Samaritan Act, you can't make new holes in people. So you can't do, surgical tracheotomy. You can't do that. You can't do a needle decompression without funny letters after your name. You can't make new holes in people under the Good Samaritan Act. You have to be licensed by the state as an EMT, etc., to be able to do that. Okay? Okay. Good talk, everybody. I gotta pee, and then the plumbers are gonna be here to fix the main water line to my house that exploded with the massive cold that we had. And so I gotta go deal with that.